The American Foundation for the Blind's 2024 Leadership Conference from September 23rd to the 25th at the Hyatt Regency in Minneapolis, Minnesota. An exclusive preview.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this special YouTube video that we're sharing with you today. I'm Tony Stevens, the Assistant Vice President for Communications with the American Foundation for the Blind, and we're excited to be sharing with you some of the great things on the horizon for the AFB Leadership Conference 2024. We'll be hosting our conference this year at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Minneapolis in the land of 10,000 lakes. And it's going to be in September, the 23rd through the 25th, a fantastic time to be in Minneapolis. I'm welcome to be joined by our own president and CEO of the American Foundation for the Blind, Eric Bridges. Hello, Eric.
Hello, Tony. How's it going?
It is going fantastic because we are getting so geared up for the conference. And we're also joined as well by Matthew Janusauskas, our Chief Technology and Programs Officer with the American Foundation for the Blind, who handles all of our things on the digital accessibility side. We're going to be talking a lot about that today in terms of our conference. But Matthew, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Tony.
Well, thanks to both of you for taking some time out. We are a month out of the conference right now, about 4 weeks away from getting together in Minneapolis. And we want to take a minute just to share with people some of the exciting programs that we've got in store. We're very excited this year that we're bringing back continuing education credits thanks to ACVREP. So for those that had previously been able to get credits in the field for blindness and low vision, we'll be bringing those credits back. There should be, I think, about 10 hours of credit people can earn. There'll be details on that on our website. We'll give some information about how you can access all information around the program agenda. But what we're going to be talking about today is some of the program itself. You know, the theme for this year is leading in the digital age. We felt in trying to come together with a theme for this year's conference, coming out of the pandemic, so much in our world has changed. Everything has been going digital, as we know, for the past 3-4 years. And as well, now that we're sort of back on our feet, as it would be, we're really getting a sense of seeing how the world has been transformed, not just since the pandemic through everything going online, but also as well with the rise of artificial intelligence. Our world has been completely transformed as well over the past 18 months since ChatGPT launched. Everybody's on the AI bandwagon now, but it is rapidly changing the world around us. So the two tracks that we're excited to be having for our breakout sessions of this year's conference will focus specifically on those two core areas. One, about the evolving social contract for accessibility, which gets into the digital accessibility space as our world is changing around us, how that impacts students and people in their jobs, all of us that just exist in the world that is all digital. And the second is AI ethics. How are we going to wrestle with artificial intelligence? Is it good? Is it bad? How can it help our world move forward? Matthew, I'm going to turn to you for a moment, if you don't mind, and really just give us a sense, because in your space for technology and programs at AFB, you work day in and day out around digital accessibility and are really sort of on the pulse of all that. These two core tracks, what really resonates with you and why are they, you think, important at this time for us to be able to bring to people in the field and our partners in the field as well?
Sure. So tackling the social contract piece first, as you've teed it up, Tony, it's very true. You know, that's so central to most of what we do here in the areas that I oversee for AFB. So our programs, our digital accessibility internships and upcoming apprenticeships, it's what it's all about, right? It's addressing that what we call the accessibility skills gap that industry continues to wrestle with. Organizations that are making the commitment to both making their products and services more accessible and inclusive, but also themselves as workplaces to be such. And once they make that commitment, they continue to let us know that they can't find the talent out there to follow through with that. Unfortunately, these things aren't being taught in places where they should be, such as computer science curriculum. So really looking to fill that gap and to train these digital creators of tomorrow to send, whether they end up with careers dedicated to accessibility, which would be great, and some of them will, and many of them have coming up through our ranks in the past. But many of them will not, and that's okay because they'll still be out there and be equipped to be, shall we say, ambassadors or hopefully even evangelists for accessibility and inclusion based on the knowledge and skills that they've learned here. And then on the AI side, I think I like the way that you teed that up. That's where most of the conversations I'm hearing are still centered. In my opinion, I would summarize it as AI isn't either good or bad, as you said. It's all about the rest of the discussion and what we'll be talking a lot about during the conference. Think the conversations around the privacy and security implications. For sure, those are no less important, and in some areas, it could be argued maybe even more important and relevant to people with disabilities. But when you get down to brass tacks, what we do know and why it's so important to us, and it's in our core strategic goals, is to change that narrative around blindness and people with disabilities as a whole. We know for a fact, and one of the many reasons we need to do that is the data that's out there that is being used to train these AI models is fundamentally flawed and it's highly biased. And that's what I mean by it's not the technology that's good or bad, but if it's being fed and trained on data that has these biases and these low expectations and of people with disabilities, then that's going to very rapidly not only propagate but probably increase. And it's so important for us to get ahead of that now, and that's why that's one of the reasons why these conversations are just so important.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that. I think for folks that go to our website, afb.org, and you can click on the conference link and get access to the program agenda, you'll notice those two breakout sessions, those tracks for those 15 sessions that we'll be having. And it really is, I think, like what you said, something that computer science people can be interested in, but we've also made sure to try to incorporate this across something that can, really resonate with people in every aspect of our field. If you're someone that's in the rehabilitation space that's trying to wrestle with what is employment going to be looking like, if you're someone in education, how is this stuff impacting our schools? If you are someone interested in media, how is this impacting the media landscape around us? It's a good gamut of things across the board, as well as on the digital accessibility side for the social contract. We have everything from fundamentals of digital accessibility that just builds that baseline digital literacy knowledge people need to have, to stuff that really does get in the weeds with, where we're going in some of these areas with the data and things like that. And what are the big hurdles we have to tackle? We'll also be having sessions on things around some of the policy issues that are tied to a lot of this and things that people just need to know, as we're all in a sense advocating for those that we try to serve each day, or maybe we are ourselves part of that community. So you can check again out that program on our website, afb.org, and then go to the conference link and then just find the program agenda on that page. That's only half the conference. And you mentioned as well, Matthew, about the narrative, and that's one of our strategic goals as well, is working with people across the field about the misperceptions and misconceptions around blindness. Eric, I want to bring you in now because our second day of the conference is really going to try to tackle a lot of that. Talk a little bit about, what makes the AFB Leadership Conference unique by the spaces that we bring everyone together and what that landscape looks like, and what we're hoping to try to tackle as on the second day of the conference, we're going to be holding a mini summit specifically around identity and narrative. And that feeds into one of our strategic goals. If you can sort of break down our mission behind what that goal is trying to set forward with this part of the conference.
Sure. Well, I'm excited to have us in Minneapolis. It's a great city to hold a conference, and that's a great time of year. So please come. Please register and come. The audience that a AFB Leadership Conference has is pretty diverse with regard to background and subject matter expertise. So, we have corporate folks, we have academics, we have folks from the government, as well as folks from the blindness field, professionals from the field, as well as people who are blind that are interested in learning and networking. And this conference has historically been a wonderful opportunity to network, to get to know others, to learn from one another. And it's something that I know that I've valued in my career since really graduating college over 2 decades ago and moving into the blindness field, this conference has and still does represent a wonderful place to share ideas and to learn from one another and develop relationships. As you talk about, the narrative piece that's contained in our strategic plan, I can't help but think we've come a really long way in a lot of aspects of day-to-day life for blind and low vision folks in this country. But the expectations, unfortunately, are still really very low about how we live our lives, what sorts of, employment, what sorts of relationships we should have. Should we be married? Should we have kids? And it's interesting. I don't know that we ourselves as blind people think that so much as the rest of society or parts of the rest of society still are not well educated on who we are, how we travel through life, and that essentially we want what everybody else wants. And, ultimately, the expectations are still, I would say, unacceptably low about what we should expect from, what society should expect from us is probably the best way to put it. So being able to engage these diverse audiences in this discussion and how we go about changing, and this is not the sort of thing that happens overnight. It's incremental over time, but I think AFB is uniquely positioned to engage these audiences and to strategize how to move forward to communicate our capabilities and our capacity as a community to progress beyond a pretty low ceiling of expectations, right? So there have been a couple of really cool things that AFB has worked on over the last year that I think are examples of how to reach out beyond the blindness bubble, right? So the first one and most recent, well, actually the most recent one, the product launch on July 23rd of Blind Barbie was a huge success and I believe educational tool for many folks outside the blindness field, because Barbie is for everyone. Barbie is an iconic brand that transcends disability. This wasn't some brand X company that did a one-off. This is Barbie, the brand, releasing a Barbie who's blind that has a white cane and that has Braille on the packaging. And working in concert with Mattel, I think it was a pretty enlightening experience for Mattel to receive feedback from mostly blind employees at AFB and mostly female blind employees regarding the look of Barbie, various attributes of Barbie. And the neat thing is that Barbie's available for purchase on Amazon, Target, Walmart, right? So this isn't some one-off that was only available for X amount of days. That Barbie is out there, and that Barbie is available for little girls who can see as well, not just blind girls. I think it's powerful that blind girls now have the ability to go out and get a Barbie that looks more like them, that they can identify with. But equally, if not more, I would say powerful in the broader sense is sighted girls being able to have a blind Barbie and be able to learn a little bit about that and create, dolls are all about creating stories, right? You tell stories through dolls. And where all is Blind Barbie going to go, right? And what is the future of Blind Barbie? And I hear she's pretty independent, and she's got great fashion sense. So
And I love how you talked about the identity because, when we have our mini summit, we'll be focusing at the early part of it specifically around the identity of blindness. Trying to get everybody in the room on the same level sense, access, and yeah, and then we get into the narrative portion of how we talk about ourselves. But yeah, that identity is core, and it's exciting with the Blind Barbie identity. Just to think that that's something that young girls now have to help form their own identity compared to what the rest of society historically has placed on us as people who are blind.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And then the second part
She's
I know will be in terms
she's
of our,
cool. Barbie, just real quick, Barbie is
yeah.
cool and she's
Oh,
pretty. And she, independent, all those things that Barbie has been known for. This Barbie just has a cane. And so, but it has all of that other stuff, which, in society, blind people, for whatever reason, have not been thought of as fashionable necessarily, right? Or necessarily hip or cool. But this is one of these product launches that really shatters a lot of that
yeah.
misconception.
I
Yeah.
love that, Eric. She's Barbie first and foremost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The blind part is just so happens to be an extra characteristic, but it's not her
exactly.
identity. I love that.
And word on the streets is, uh, we can't get Margot, but the other Barbie might make an appearance. Blind Barbie, very well. Folks can get their hands on Blind Barbie and get to check it out at the conference. The other thing too that we're going to be doing, we'll be airing or screening, I should say, our documentary film Possibilities that was released this past year as well. That'll be the first night, and that also works to sort of tackle the perceptions around blindness. It's a 90-minute award-winning documentary. We were just screened at a festival in Durban, South Africa, which was fantastic. We've been screened in Barcelona and Turkey and around the United States, and it's been award-winning. So we're excited for folks to check out that documentary film as well. There's a lot in store for this year's conference. We're looking to have a great program for everybody that attends. Like Eric said, register, join us. Our hotel rate still is going for a couple more weeks, so you can still get a discounted hotel rate at the Hyatt Regency. You can go to afb.org and click on the Leadership Conference link there on our main page, and that'll give you all the other information. But, in one word, Eric and Matthew, as we're going to be departing now, what's one word you could probably say that gets you jazzed up or excited around the conference? One thing to share with everybody.
I would say engagement, just having the ability to engage in dialogue. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to do that, either in the breakouts, but just hanging out in the hallways in between sessions.
Awesome. Matthew, how about you, sir?
I agree. Engagement for sure, and I think a specific aspect of that engagement that's just critical is the part everyone plays. So I would say collaboration, because it's going to take all of us working together to make the progress that's necessary.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us, and thanks everybody for watching this YouTube video and on our other social media platforms as well. Feel free to reach out to communications@afb.org if you have any questions about the conference or anything else relating to AFB. And Eric, Matthew, thank you so much, gentlemen. Have a fantastic day. And maybe we can find some other reason to get on our interwebs again and do this again sometime. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tony. I hope to see everybody in Minneapolis.
Yep.
Join us for AFBLC 2024.